academia, for instance, you can take an assumption and then or a hypothesis and then a conclusion or a theory that may be flawed, and then you back it up with references that are in fact flawed, and then you can say that it is in essence a truth.
That's what they try to do.
Yeah, right.
That's why it has to be a continual. It has to be ability to be able to be continually challenged.
And the other thing that I think we've clearly been able to determine is that, for instance, if we look at science is not what's a proven fact often, at some future point proves not to be quite so.
It just as it was an assumption.
Right, an assumption, yeah, mm-hmm. or that it's modified, or it wasn't, what the inference was turned out not to be
right.
correct. And so I don't know. It seems that it's hard to see where the trivia part comes in, and then we're beyond that there's some sort of understanding and insight that comes out of it, because it seems so superficial. It seems like it's just a series of sort of random facts that are maybe categorized loosely by pop culture or history or sports in a category, true, but beyond that there's no. It just seems that it's just touching on, and supposedly then that's knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's under the broad category of knowledge, but it's not insight, it's not understanding. And so I guess where I'm
that can only come later with cogitation and meditation, so to speak, and contemplation, etc. All those kind of mental activities.
So
but you can go drive down the road and just note certain kinds of plants that exist along the way, or creatures or whatever, and just make a mental note of it. Well, at first that might just seem inconsequential, and trivial, etc., etc., etc. But then eventually you make a note. It becomes reinforced in your mind. Oh, I saw that here, and I didn't see this there.
So if you're flitting through all of these trivial and nuggets of knowledge categories, you'll never be able to get anything in depth, right?
Yeah, have some.
You'll never be able to get below that surface of sort of that superficial knowledge of just the right or wrong answer or a statement of fact.
Well, that's not true. In fact, the more you appreciate something.
The guy on Jeopardy that won all the times. Okay.
Yeah, Ken Jennings. Yeah.
Okay. Did he go on to do some sort of contribution, or was it just he had a head full of trivia?
He was a computer programmer, as far as I know.
Yeah, he had a photographic memory or something probably too. No, he can remember all these incredible numbers of obscure facts, but beyond that, could he then interpret them in a certain way that would enhance those facts or bring value to it, or was it simply a matter of answering a factual question?
Well, considering that he was a Mormon, he was probably more inclined to just be a photographic memory type and not necessarily the grand theorist
He just
type.
spent 8 to 10 hours a day studying the trivia, or whatever, just filling his head with it, right?
But you can't, somebody at least, the more knowledge you have, whatever it is, the more you're going to be able to later, someday, be able to. Maybe you won't.
So if
but still, you can't make a grand theory out of anything if you don't have any knowledge to begin with.
Okay, it could be, but what I guess what I'm getting around to is if I know enough about Lindsay Lohan, who drinks and does drugs and won't do her.
That is junk knowledge. It definitely
her
crowds.
dad gets drunker about this.
It crowds. It does crowd your brain, and it really, it's bad because it does crowd your brain.
It crowds your brain out.
Right,
okay,
right.
So in other words, then maybe what you have to do is to then put some sort of direction as to what you learn, and then write off the stuff like movie stars and their plastic surgery and their 70-day-year marriages and all this stuff that's obviously hyped up,
right,
and contrived.
Right.
It's sort of like Dear Abby, them making up the questions.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's all
unfortunately, we're
choreographed.
dependent on the media, though, to get knowledge. For instance, I consider the earthquake in Japan last March a significant event, just from scientific knowledge, just understanding earthquakes and plate tectonics and everything else. You know, it was actually a significant event. But how are you going to know it unless you're watching or keeping up with the news, with the media? You're not. So you're dependent on the media to provide you with that information. And you have to, unfortunately, along with that information, know that they're going to also feed you this other shit. And you just have to be able to...
The Lindsay Lohan and the 70-day marriage and all that. You know.
And you have... You know, unfortunately, it takes a little bit of energy, and your main effort is to take as little energy as possible to, oh, okay, there it is, and then, you know, channel it away from your memory as much as possible in your mind, and so that you're...
So it seems to me like somebody like Ken Jennings just filled all the little pigeonholes in his brain. He didn't necessarily come up with any better understanding than anybody else. He just had...
I know in some cases, for instance, he didn't know some things I knew about basic science and biology that came up in the ultimate tournament of champions.
He did that. Was that Trivial Pursuit? He just knew a lot of those answers. He was very good at that and had a very good memory. He probably, if he heard something, he never forgot it. And if it came up again,
I still can't. I doubt if he didn't have some, at least, appreciation of the importance of certain types of knowledge and theory, and
it never came out. I mean, he just never.
Yeah, well, on a show like that, you're not allowed.
Yeah, right.
You're not
and
permitted.
Never. Yeah, right.
The only way you can do that is to write a book or something. You know, maybe have a website on the internet. I don't know what his career is, but I mean, I know what his career is, but I don't know much about it. So I've never followed up on whatever that was.
So it seems to me that's kind of maybe it's an indication in society. Everything is like the political thing. You think that who's going to win the presidency might change the world. In reality, it won't. It doesn't. It matters less and less with every day that passes.
Well, the United States in itself is going to be less and less important in the world stage. Period. China's the one that's, and then India. You know, I mean, just by the sheer fact of their populations, are going to dominate politics in 100 years from now. You know, and the United States is just going to be, well, I mean, since we can't use nuclear weapons, you know, that's the only thing that the United States had to really, had to kind of threaten the rest of the world with, you know.
So the sheer numbers are gonna push them ahead.
Eventually, yeah. Eventually.
Well, how long has India been with a large number of people?
A long, long time, and I would say China's probably going to beat them because they've still got this drag of this. This Hinduism, you know.
But doesn't China have the drag of communism? I mean, it's another form of religion.
Well, yeah, but it's...
If India has had a large amount of people for a long, long time...
India's got 1 billion people too now.
And they haven't done very much. I mean, they're really good mathematicians